Hi, everyone. My name is Jason Kerr. I'll be the moderator today. This is the part of the Beaker Speakers series. This one in particular is the Alumni in AI Artificial Intelligence Business session. My name is Jason, just very quickly. My name is Jason Kerr. I'm a senior manager at Moderna, dealing with regulatory intelligence and external engagements. And I have a little bit of a background in terms of artificial intelligence, but more importantly, I'm an alumni from the Masters of Business of MBS program. And I would like to open the floor to Saraiyah and also to Justin in terms of sharing their background for a quick little introduction. Saraiyah.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Hi, everyone. My name is Saraiyah Hatter, MBS class of 2022, so kind of a recent grad. My role is, my company is PharmaForceIQ. We specialize in AI-powered machine learning omnichannel. We branded as Optichannel. I am the director of Optichannel Engagement, so I run the entire client engagement team at PFIQ. Yeah, I'm very excited to connect with you guys and speak a little bit about AI. My background is in strategy consulting, so I was one of those students who went straight from graduation to a consulting role. I worked on brand planning and brand strategy and launch strategy. In doing that, I saw that the marketing tiers were less miserable than the rest of them. So I'm like, let me try marketing. That's how we ended up where we are. But excited to connect with you all.
Very cool. Thank you, Saraiyah. And Justin, your quick introduction, please.
Yeah, great to be able to see. And when I heard about AI and doing a panel about that, that sounded really interesting. So my name is Justin. I graduated from the MBS program back in 2021. See some familiar faces and alumni over here too. My role over with Tempest AI is an associate director of business development, so helping to be able to kind of grow partnerships that we have with large pharmaceutical companies, most of some that you are all at. And our specific role is working with patient records, de-identify patient records, and be able to kind of package that and be able to identify and put AI on top of it in a combination of both molecular and clinical data. I can be able to kind of share more about that and how we actually start using AI. Great to meet you all.
Perfect. Thank you both for your introductions. So let me just dive right in and straight into the point here. So since the massive public release of ChatGPT and other generative AI type of softwares and programs since November of 2022, there's been a lot has changed since 2022 in these past 3 years now. Wow, realizing it's November now. In the past 3 years, how has this popularity in regards to generative artificial intelligence, but also the upcoming agentic AI coming up to business today, comparing between what was life before this whole hubbub and the buzzword of artificial intelligence to where it is today? What's your perspective in terms of artificial intelligence and how has that changed in regards to the business side of things? Justin, would you like to go first?
Yeah, I mean, I think as you could probably all be able to say too, it's really affected every single area within our daily life. Before I was looking through dozens and dozens of articles over at on Google just to be able to go find a certain answer, and now I could be able to ask that to ChatGPT and get the answer super, super quickly. You can be able to use it over personal life as well as also professional life. And I think that started instigating and adding a lot of applications of AI to different biotech and a lot of different tech companies that are kind of over in this space. And the companies that are adopting and actually working with AI, I think, have a step up than those who are not. And you do see that a lot of companies will start either finding ways to adapt or finding ways to be able to acquire certain companies and different characteristics to be able to kind of keep up with this demand and how an AI bot can be able to sometimes do more than a person and be able to kind of just keep up with that speed.
Very cool. Thank you. Soraya?
Yeah, absolutely. So in my industry, I would say pre-2022, what was happening in the marketing space was essentially something called omni-channel. They're rolling this concept out. And the goal was for digital marketing and sales rep or field force marketing for HCPs for that to kind of connect and speak to each other. The issue, though, was that every single company had a different explanation or expectation of what omni-channel was, and it was not centralized. And because of that, a lot of times it ended up failing. So now the expectation with generative AI is, hey, how do we use AI to make sure that what's happening here on the digital side is actually impacting what's happening on the sales rep side? how do we make sure we're spending our media dollars wisely that's actually going to contribute to prescription lift? They want personalized journeys for every single individual. I don't have Instagram, but I'm on LinkedIn. So if someone were going to target me with an ad, like they're going to have to come on LinkedIn or Pinterest because I'm not on Instagram and Facebook. But it's like, how do I use that data point and use it, put it into a machine learning algorithm to figure out to what messages at what time is going to drive me to convert or drive me to an action. So I think that's the expectation across the board for many companies now. A lot of them are trying to build it in-house. And I would say that's like the most major impact we've seen on like the marketing side.
Ooh, kind of want to expand on that a little bit there. So before the generative AI and all this artificial intelligence, we've also had to, in general, I'm imagining if I'm in the marketing area type of thing, you'd have to create personas and use user case stories of, this is a persona number one. This is a person who is, 30 to 40-year-old who is a healthcare provider just introduced into this new area versus 50 to 60-year-old. You can create your own based off of experience that you've learned before artificial intelligence. So you know what kind of works and what things look like. Versus now that you have an artificial intelligence to kind of tailor, and tell me if I'm wrong in the direction here, to tailor the type of personas, do you find that the artificial intelligence is actually better in terms of predicting the different types of individualized personas? Is it more personas or is it more accurate? Thoughts on that?
So I would say at my company it is. And it's because we have these integrations that gives us real-time first-party data. So I can know at NPR level where they're going. Are they going to Medscape? Are they going to Oncology Learning Network? Where are they going? Where are they engaging? And then I pull that in. And then when I'm building my media plan, I know like, hey, if 80% of my doctors on my target list are going to this website, I'm going to contract with that vendor. And I'm spending the dollars wisely. And then the engagement rates are through the roof. And they're like, how are you doing this? It's like, oh, because I knew they were going to be there. They're like, how'd you know? I'm like, it's a secret sauce. Um, but yeah, I think that the goal is like, how do we use AI to, I mean, it's capitalism, it's America. Like, how do we use AI to get more money? That's the
More engagements, more likes, more clicks,
more
more.
engagements, more prescriptions, and what do we do and how do we always optimize and how do we get more and more and more? So that's the change.
Very cool. Perfect.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually kind of it's funny that you're talking about it from that perspective. Over within my company, we do a lot with patient journey analysis because it's really strong to be able to have, and this is mostly on the oncology side, where it's important to be able to think about molecular data, how that links over with clinical data, how that links over with claims, mortality, so that biopharma companies can be able to make the most intelligent journey and do it at scale. So you're not just thinking how a dozen patients can kind of be able to go do this, but you could be able to look at thousands, if not millions of patients who are having these disease areas. Where is that unmet need? Where is that gap? What does the actual patient journey look like? And where can we be able to best make a change? And that's kind of where at least like data starts playing into it. And applying AI on top of that data, you can actually start developing insights.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, we should talk after this. But like those are actually, we call them triggers at my company, and we'll get a piece of lab data or a claim data and say, hey, Dr. Justin just diagnosed this patient, or Dr. Jason, his patient just completed this first line therapy, and I have a second line therapy drug. So let me bring him in. Okay, it's going to be about 6 to 8 weeks or 6 to 8 months before they relapse. Let me put him on a message journey and keep targeting him to keep the brand top of mind while that patient is potentially progressing. So then by the time the patient is ready for that drug, now my brand has been at your top of mind. Like that's how we orchestrate all. It's kind of creepy. It's like you would think like, hey, I want a new watch, and then you're scrolling somewhere and then you see all these watch ads and you're like, wait, how did
How did
they
they know? Yeah. So,
we
so actually, let me think about this a little, going down this dark Black Mirror type of pathway.
very dark.
So curious because we work in an industry where there are HIPAA laws. Has AI ever, like, I don't know what the regulations look like in regards to this. Like, is there particular safeguards or measurements in regards to applying patients' data and information with integrating with the artificial intelligence? Do you guys know in this particular area?
At least within my specific area and industry, I mean, it's something that's really common and it's making sure that everything is de-identified.
Hmm.
And once you actually start tokenizing a level of patient data, you could be
Hmm.
able to start linking it to a lot of areas, telling about a patient journey. And it's never, and there's such a big black wall between a patient who just got diagnosed over with this specific cancer, has this specific biomarker, into us actually seeing it and trying to be able to go package that and talk about it over with biopharma companies. There's such a big gap, two different
Hmm.
very business units that will never talk to each other.
Gotcha. Okay. So it's
Yeah.
pretty much more safeguard in regards to that.
Mhm.
And on my end, when we get the data, we know nothing about the patient. We just know that we know the HCP, like we know the NPI, we know everything about the doctor who has that patient.
Hmm.
And then we use that to pull them into a journey.
And for our audience members here, the healthcare HCP, what does that stand for?
Oh, healthcare provider.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. I know
You
what
guys
it is, but
know
yeah.
this. You guys are KGI.
Yeah, different lingo and different speak. Perfect. So then curious in regards to working for a company that uses AI versus you guys as workers working in artificial intelligence. What's your experience like working with artificial intelligence in your specific capacity? Any thoughts in terms of positives or negatives, or has it hallucinated before, or has it far exceeded your expectations?
Yeah, I mean, at least within my experience over with just personal use, it's probably pretty similar to what other students would kind of be able to go use too. I want to be able to find a really custom message that I could be able to look at Amgen. So I'm going to go put their earnings reports in here. I'm going to go put some of the existing conversations that we have. How do we get, what's the best way that I should be kind of outreaching to? What's the messaging? Here's some things about my company, and kind of using it as like an assistant to be able to start kind of going back and forth with really a thought partner.
Hmm.
Um, I think that's probably the best use case that I've been able to have it for in professional kind of reasons. Uh,
Hmm.
and personal, it'll plan any kind of trip for you too. That's the only
Yeah,
thing.
I've used it as well too.
Yep.
I need to do
Soraya?
that. I would say on our end, it's more so a tool. I don't know who said it, maybe Henry David Thoreau, like men have become tools of their tools. So it's like you sometimes people use it to like think for them and do everything for them. But
Mhm.
and how we use it on our team, if we're using something like ChatGPT, it's like, hey, we have this client and we need to be strategic partners, right?
Mhm.
Go find out what's happening with their competitors. Go find
Mm.
out
Mhm.
the additional clinical trials. Go find out key conferences where HCPs may be attending that we can target.
Mm.
So it's
Mhm.
like we're consistently coming to the client each week, like, hey, have you thought about this? Or should we add this in? Or should we target here? And the clients were like, oh my gosh, you're doing all my work for me. You're making me look good.
Mm.
So we're using it in that regard to help kind of frame strategy and quickly do research. But the hallucination thing is a real thing. So I'm always telling the team, hey, let's go back, let's go double check, like check
Mm.
those dates, make sure that sounds right.
Mhm.
I think one of my pet peeves with it though is people
Sure.
who use it to like write emails and you get that long, you see that long
The
dash.
M dashes and whatnot. Yeah.
You do that,
No,
delete the dash.
Yeah.
Like, I know
no.
you put this in ChatGPT and said, make this sound nicer.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good call out too, is because there's so much information at the tips of our fingertips, you could
Mhm.
be able to easily get overwhelmed and just say, okay, well, you have this clinical trial and then you have this asset in your pipeline, and let's talk about this, and here's this upcoming conference.
Mhm.
It will always, I think it'll always take a human to be able to kind of like rethink that and think, okay, let me put it into my specific terms, my specific language, um, and how would I actually phrase that?
Mm. Gotcha. Okay. So I'm going to share a very quick personal story about when I've used ChatGPT and the hallucinations, and then ask a follow-up question in regards to that in terms of like, do you have concerns and worries about this type of situation? So in my particular role, it's dealing with regulatory law and compliance type of aspect. And I asked ChatGPT a very specific question in regards to what does the regulatory requirements of the United Kingdom looks like? And what I know is that Brexit happened about a good 10 years ago, 10, 11 years ago. So they have now changed into their own particular domestic type of regulations and law and not within the European Union. But ChatGPT is still grabbing information because there's a more plethora of information when the MHRA, which is the FDA of the United Kingdom, was much more ingrained with the European laws versus now all the laws have been since just specifically tailored towards the United Kingdom. So it's been giving me suggestions of laws that no longer exist for the United Kingdom. And I keep telling you that you're wrong, you're wrong. It wasn't until I told it like, hey, give me every information post-Brexit. They're like, ah, actually, this you're right, Jason. Here's actually the real information in regards to the MHRA and the laws in the United Kingdom. And I was like, yeah, I know, because I'm an expert and you're not. So what worries me, if I didn't know Brexit happened or didn't know the particular laws of that particular landscape, that I would have just taken the first shot like, ah, yes, United Kingdom is part of if part of Europe, European Union sounds like a reasonable council to be part of type of thing. So I'll just run with it. Do you foresee with these hallucinations or any other information without fact checking the sources from ChatGPT that there could be unintentional or negative consequences of the information that you see? Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's really easy to be able to say, okay, this is good and cookie cutter, copy and paste. Um, I think and again, I think it's always important to be able to do some of those fact checks, look through the sources. Am I the perfect person to be able to do that? Of course, always. I would never make a mistake. But yeah, that's always very difficult to be able to like when you have such an easy, readily available. 'Cause I don't have to be able to kind of think about it twice. I could
Mhm.
ask it to do a book report and it could write me 10 pages on Moby Dick, but I never actually read it. It's important to always like and I think that's going to be a downfall, I think, of the early days of AI. I think in 5, 10 years, I don't think it'll make some of those mistakes.
Okay, good to know. Sorry, do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think the responsibility ends up being on the user, right? I think we say AI, we AI, AI.
Hmm.
AI means artificial intelligence.
Hmm.
It's like it's only going to be as good as you prompt it to be. It's only going to output based on your prompts.
Hmm.
So you have a responsibility, I think, as the user to prompt responsibly, to prompt thoroughly, to to click on the little link. Like it's going to give you a fact and it's going to give you a link like where I pulled it from. Click on the link and go read it, go look at the date. Like
Mm.
it's your responsibility, right, to be a responsible and moral user of artificial intelligence. But I think a lot of times we forget that we do have that actual intelligence. So I
Mm.
think remembering that and keeping that at the forefront of your mind as you're engaging with platforms like ChatGPT is very critical to
Mhm.
prevent those type of errors.
Mm. That's fair. That's fair. Thank you for
I
sharing.
I think it would also be interesting to be able to find that there are other programs that are probably a bit more technical. I've seen like Notebook LLM where it'll specifically like insight exactly where they actually pulled the information from,
Hmm.
and they require you to be able to upload a lot of different sources, but maybe it's not as user friendly as ChatGPT or as like clear and easy to be able to use. So
Mm.
you'll probably start seeing a divide that of those that are like really easy and a nice frame, a nice kind of interface versus those that are actually probably a little bit more technical, but might be take you to be able to have that extra step of reading
Mm.
through the different sources.
I see. So it might be more technical and pretty much an expert or someone specializing in that field would be able to use it, but you would at least have confidence in the sources of the information that's getting it from.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's probably going to be a couple different systems where you see ChatGPT is great for this and Claude is really great for this, and you're going to start seeing a little bit of a divide.
That's fair. Thank you.
Yeah, on our side, like one of the top platforms, it emerged over the summer. I'm thinking because all the new residents started in
Hmm.
July. The number one platform to use for doctors is Open Evidence. Have you guys heard of Open Evidence before?
I sure have. Yes.
Yeah, so Open Evidence is essentially Chat GPT for doctors, and literally
Hmm.
they can go and type in any kind of healthcare question, and it's going to summarize an answer, and it's going to pull all the sources,
Hmm.
and all the research articles, right, that it used, and then they can double click on as they need. And now Open Evidence is, allowing pharma companies to advertise on its platform to
Mm.
for those HCPs who are searching for about a certain disease state, right? So I think, yeah, to Justin's point, having that specialized piece is really going to drive that engagement.
It's a very good perspective. Yeah, because I think I remember watching a report or reading a report indicating that with open evidence, rather than having you as an expert or like let's say a cardiologist in the field read all the, let's say 2,000 new articles for that year, it
Mm.
can summarize the information and share it with you. And then also with that, there may be, a diamond in the rough that you're unable to see. And it isn't until open evidence actually polishes the information that you see, oh, actually, this is a really good nugget of information to have. And how do I apply that to their particular trade? cardiovascular, uh, ischemia, all those type of cardiovascular words that I have no idea what they mean. Perfect. Thank you for sharing. I want to take this next couple of questions into a different direction. So my question here is now going to be focused in regards to the implementation of AI. So since you both work in artificial intelligence focused type of companies, what's your experience been like in terms of implementing artificial intelligence into your clients' businesses, into the day-to-day operations, those type of areas? Any thoughts in regards to how your company has been implementing and interacting with other folks?
Yeah, I can go first. So we use AI across the board. Like our entire platform is an AI machine learning platform. So what we do is at individual level, say
Mm-hmm,
I have a group of everyone on this line and say it's, 15 people, and I have this certain set of banners or emails or content I want to push to you.
mm-hmm,
You, Jason, might have a completely different journey than me, and I may have a different journey than Justin.
mm-hmm,
And we use AI to target doctors or whoever on their strongest affinity channel and platform. So
mm-hmm.
if you like Medscape and I'm on Facebook, we're going to have different journeys. If you engage with efficacy and I engage with mechanism of action, we're going to have different journeys. So we
Fair.
use AI to create these very one-to-one personalized message journeys for these doctors to go through to give them any kind of relevant information they need to keep the brand top of mind before they make a treatment decision. That's the entire goal. And then we
Mm.
map all of this at MPI level, which is like their number, to the
Okay.
prescription lift. So
Mm.
it's saying like, hey, Dr. Jason diagnosed this patient on November 11th. We target him on the 12th, 13th, 14th. He opened an email on the 15th. He clicked on a banner on the 16th. He wrote a prescription on the 17th. And
Mm.
then we hand that all over to our clients.
Mm.
So for them, it's wow, you used AI to create this very personalized journey and it drove for us to get more money. Can you do it again?
Fair, fair.
And that's essentially it's like, and then we house everything in this, proprietary dashboard, and other agencies, right, will give you maybe a monthly report or a quarterly report. All of our data is loaded in real time. So it's like I
Mm.
can go on
It's
tomorrow
instant.
and see instantly
Mm.
how things are performing, how a certain banner is performing, and I can quickly make changes and optimize and strategize. So AI is like the bread and butter of like what we do at PharmaForceIQ, and it's really, really interesting. I don't know if anyone joined. Karina, are you on? She can.
Hi, I'm here.
Fellow KGI
Perfect.
Alum, my amazing associate. And yeah, the clients are really pleased with it.
Very cool. Thank you. Justin, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, with one of the services that my company offers, it's a way of closing care gaps that are there specifically when it comes down to testing programs. So
Mm-hmm.
within oncology, the NCCN guidelines change every couple months and days, and it gets pretty crazy to be able to go scan through and to be able to see like, okay, what's the most amount of testing that I should be doing? What are
Mm-hmm.
some of the actual new therapies that are specifically out there? And with physicians having so much over on their plate, what our company will do is we'll scan the NCCN guidelines and
Mm-hmm.
start sending reports over to the physicians so that physicians can be able to say, okay, hey, Jason just came through our lab, our clinic, and turns out that the NCCN guidelines just changed last month, and there's 3 approved therapies specifically for it. Let me
Mm-hmm.
go find a way to be able to actually now, we call it the closing of the care gap, to be able to
Mm-hmm.
say, okay, before I wouldn't have known what kind of care to be able to have.
Mm-hmm.
But now through our program, you can actually be able to say, this program person just came in with this specific profile, and they're a good candidate for these clinical trials and for these approved therapies
Mm.
because of the NCCN guidelines, because of their profile, because of a lot of different factors that go
Mm-hmm.
into it. And it's something that a lot of biopharma companies like because of just so much of the changing guidelines that is there to be able to kind of start saying, okay, we should be getting more people tested with this program. We should be able to see just more physicians. And again, as Sariah was able to kind of say within her org, we're also kind of giving you a lot of that information back over to the biopharma company. Before we implemented this Tempest program, there
Mm-hmm.
were only 10% of patients that were actually getting tested. And now there's 70% of patients who are going through sequencing, and that's giving the physicians more confidence to be able to go prescribe certain therapeutics.
Mm.
And that's kind of where we start using like the AI to be able to scan a lot of that software. and then to
Mhm.
be able to report on that back to the biopharma company.
Very interesting. Perfect. Thank you. So I'm actually curious in regards to a lot of the tailoring aspect of artificial intelligence. So you can say, take for example, like you're a doctor that prefers Medscape, and or you're a doctor that or a healthcare provider HCP that prefers Medscape versus an HCP that prefers Facebook, which is a very interesting way to get information there. But in general, my current thought is in regards to the tailoring of information for that specific person. So if the artificial intelligence model is able to read, this person, let's say Dr. Kerr, really likes clinical based evidence. So then we'll just give only clinical based evidence towards Dr. Kerr. Dr. Kerr may be very interested and engaged in that particular area. But then that means artificial intelligence is also filtering out other information. Take, for example, patient advocacy. Had Dr. Kerr know about the lack or the extreme need of patient advocacy for particular, let's say cystic fibrosis, and let's say Dr. Kerr had no idea about cystic fibrosis and how much patient population and the advocacy around it is looking, what it looks like. Do you fear that the artificial intelligence, by filtering out or only filtering and focusing on particular areas, may sway the doctors or any of the users in a negative aspect? Any thoughts on that?
So from our perspective, it's we're not pulling in information based on one brand, and it's a little bit scary because it does scrape what everything that you do and everything that you engage with, and it
Hmm.
does it in real time. So a lot of people have affinity data. I think ZS is like one of the platforms that has like affinity data, but they have like a dynamic set. So they do a scraping like once a year, then they
Hmm.
can sell that for the year. Ours is
Hmm.
consistently updating because what you're doing right now in November, Jason, you may not have been doing in January. So
Fair.
it's consistently keeping up with, hey, what are you engaging with now? And we build our
Hmm.
plans based on recency and frequency of engagement. So
Hmm.
say most recently you're engaging here or you're frequently engaging here. If you go on and you engage one time, that's okay. Maybe we may not spend our dollars there.
Hmm.
Budgets are constraining and they're getting tighter, and the budgets are going down, but the expectations of ROI goes up somehow. Does
Yep.
the logic make sense? Not really. But it's like, how do we figure out how to spend our dollars wisely? And if I have to message this to 30,000 doctors all the time, that's
Yeah.
really expensive when I can just message to the 100 per week who have an eligible patient.
Very fair. Justin, do you have any thoughts?
No, I'll leave it to Saraiyah on that one.
Perfect. Thank you. So then, speaking about budgets and quarterly reportables type of things, with it's no secret that the industry, both biotech and just overall in terms of the world, that there are a surmounting amount of layoffs and changes and reorganizations that are happening. I'm also part of that in the companies that I work at. So with artificial intelligence, do you think that all of this layoffs is a big proponent in regards to this? And if you do you see this being the constraints of the budget and the introduction of artificial intelligence is a contributing factor, or do you think it's separate? Do you any thoughts in regards to that? I'm just personally curious, and I'm sure some of our audience members are also curious in regards to this.
I think it's important I think the people who know how to be able to best utilize and
Hmm.
work with AI, they're going to be kind of the most successful. People who just kind of get swept up or kind of go through the exact same motions that they were doing a year ago. Um, and companies that are kind of doing the same thing, they'll get swept up because just AI is coming just super, super quickly. The
Hmm.
ability to be able to kind of do your job, do it fast, do it smart. And with the most amount of like information, I think that's really important to be able to kind of go over and consider.
Hmm.
Um, at least in terms of budgets and companies that will be doing this, I think it's just about the ability to be able to kind of keep up with it with AI over in that space. Soraya, you have any other thoughts?
I was gonna say, do you think that I don't know. I feel like it's like a TikTok dance trend. And it's like everyone's hopping on board, and then like 6 months later, a year later, you're like, why did I post that? I don't have a TikTok, but you get the like point. Like
Yeah.
I'm actually curious. Do you guys think that all these layoffs, they're going to look back a year from now, 2 years from now, and saying, wait, AI is not providing us, what we thought we would be able to get, and we actually do need the people behind and the brains behind it to actually make AI work for the company. What do you guys think?
So I'll share a little bit about my experience and report that I've been reading recently. So at least from in my experience, so I focus more on regulations and law in terms of pharmaceutical product quality and manufacturing requirements, good manufacturing requirements, GMP. ChatGPT and other Claudes and Geminis and other even specially vendor type of artificial intelligence,
Mhm.
it hallucinates a lot to the point where I remember reading, I have a great example. I was reading, I was in Canada, I was auditing a particular site and I was reading something. I was like, I don't know the Canadian law as well. I don't know at the back of my hands like the FDA and the EMA type of requirements. So I was like, I think it's guidance document number 8, number 12, I forget which one. So I asked it, this is the situation. What law in Canada does it apply to? It lied. And it lied to the point where like it gave me quotes. It said like this is the exact law. And I was like, that law is the most specifically written law I've ever read before. And I was like, something alarm bells were ringing, things were wrong and whatnot. So had I just, not an expert in my field, I would have just copied that and pasted it and told in the report, you're in violation of this law. Now, violation is a very strong word, but basically it was a more of a gray area in my opinion. So I had to look it up and be like, I asked ChatGPT, could you tell me where you got this reference? It's like, oh, I'm so sorry, I made it up. It just straight up lied to me, and I was very, very angry. And I had to change the prompt in the background saying, like, never lie to me. When you give quotes, give me real quotes from different real things. Don't just make it look real, type of
Did you
thing.
chastise ChatGPT?
Oh, I'm so angry. I was
Good.
so angry. I started yelling at
Imagine
it and
AI.
screaming. Yeah, that is the worst AI I've ever seen, type of thing. And I have it in the background because I have a legal particular perspective section that I say like, do not lie when you reference something, reference it correctly. Do not change if there's a mistake in a period of a comma of a law. Tell me that period and a comma because those periods and commas they actually make a huge difference in terms of the interpretation of the law. Regardless, my perspective is I've been underwhelmed as an expert in terms of the real applicability of artificial intelligence. So that's my personal opinion and take from an expert perspective. But there's this recent report from MIT that came out, and it said, let me see, I had a quote here in preparation for this. Despite the 30 to 40 billion dollars that has been investment from an enterprise-wide perspective of generative AI, this report uncovered that surprising result that only 95 of the organizations are getting 0% return. So what that means in the opposite sense is of the people that are in of the companies and the enterprise-wide systems that are implementing artificial intelligence, only 5% are actually seeing a real return, a real net return.
Mm.
So that is just a report of today, and AI has only been here for since about 3 to 4. I mean, I know AI has been around since Turing type of thing, but in general, the widespread popularization of AI has been only around for 3 to 4 years. There doesn't seem to be as much of a return from my perspective. Now, whether it's because it's too early to tell, or are we really in a AI bubble type of aspect? Time will tell, and I can't predict with my crystal balls and my tea leaves here. But I'd be curious to see if I'm right or wrong, and I don't know. Aside from my specific area and my specific use case, um, I've been underwhelmed in terms of actual expertise area. I will say that I've also tried doing my expense reports because for some reason my expense reports for the corporations have been it gives it to me in PDF and it's in the wrong format. And I'm like, ChatGPT, this is easy. You add up all the numbers, you should get $3,000 type of thing. Could you please organize correctly and put the foods and the hotels and the transportation in separate buckets? I've asked it 7 different ways, 7 different times. I put it in a CSV file, I put it as JSON file, I put it as a PDF, I put it in Excel, I copied and pasted from HTML. I know all of this technical garble. And it still every single time gave me a different total. And it is a math problem. And it can't, this was about 6 months ago. So unless they fixed it in the past 6 months, I've been very angry. At least from my aspect of the actual interactions with ChatGPT.
Jason
But
knows
but
what
I
you're
will
feeling.
say very quickly, I will say that what it's good at is if I tell them this is what I want the tone of this email to sound like, and here's all
Mhm.
the information, it does a brilliant job in communicating. So I give props to that.
Yeah, I'll probably agree with you. I think the math definitely needs to be always that fact check, looking through actual regulations and things like that. But in general, at least within some of my understanding, again, I'm sure maybe any of the students over on here too could be able to talk about that from like a learning kind of perspective too. when you kind of start just giving it the sources and start asking questions based on that, that usually can be able to kind of help a little bit. And I think in kind of going back over to different companies that are using it, and some of the people who are over here on the call who are probably on the biopharma side,
Mhm.
biopharma companies are really starting to be able to utilize a lot of this for research and development purposes, pharmaceutical discovery, and I think it's making insights faster and
Mhm.
probably making biopharma companies more confident in a lot of their decisions as they're going up. And Jason, I'd be curious to be able to see also from like a regulatory perspective too, if that's helping people make decisions quicker and more confidently as they're kind of going through and progressing phase trials. But we'll see. I guess time will tell too.
I'll say this very quickly. I think in general, in terms of regulations and making decisions quicker, it is it's giving more information, which is a good aspect, but
Mhm.
because of all that new information, it can also cause analysis paralysis
Mm.
because there's so much more new information. And it's like now I have to take the time as an expert to really consider and think, one, is it true? And two, if true, is AI's interpretation of the law accurate enough? Because it is an artificial intelligence model. It is making something to make me read something in hopes of getting a good result for me, but it doesn't really know who I am unless I tell it my life story type of thing. So it has to then grab information from other opinion pieces from other sources that are available. And where it gets that information and whether that information is correct or not, depending on the subject area, it can be interpreted incorrectly. So therefore, as experts, we have to read the language of artificial intelligence more accurately and then say, hey, where's your sources coming from? Let me read the actual sources. But then as I read those sources, even when I'm reading those extra sources myself, I'm wondering, was this also written by ChatGPT? So then it's just its own, photocopying, like from black and white to color coded to now in a different QR format type of thing. It's the same information, just regurgitated in a different format. It makes me worried in regards to that.
Mm.
Yeah. But since you mentioned about students, uh, any advice in terms of how students should around this, how they should overcome this particular issue, how to prepare for the AI and the integration into the workforce?
I mean, I've been, and I did a certificate over in health economics and outcomes research. So
Nice.
I took this a little bit from like a student perspective too. I am personally really glad this did not exist while I was over in college and grad school. I think it's so hard not to be able just to copy and paste this into ChatGPT and tell me what's the correct answer.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to continuously be hard. And I don't know how teachers are going to be able to kind of make up for it. Um, how these like plagiarism softwares are going to ever be able to do it because you could easily just say rephrase this, make it sound more human. I say use everything over with caution.
Mm,
I think as we're all kind of saying, always kind of do your due diligence, do the fact checking, but also don't rely on it because the real world, I think, uses AI, but it's not about actually relying on it.
that's fair.
Soraya?
That's a huge piece. And I want to say, even with my clients, we have this platform, we have this amazing dashboard, we have all this real-time data. If I were to hand it to them and say, here you go, they would be like, what is this?
Yeah.
Mhm.
How do I interact
They
with
want
this?
to
How do I
know.
play with this?
They're like, wait, can you tell us like what to do next? Like, what do we
Yeah.
do? And what are the strategic recommendations? And how do I save more money or how do I engage more people? And there are always those questions about what can we do, right, to optimize or what strategic recommendations we have. So I think for the students, it's first and foremost, when you're using Gen AI,
Hmm.
anything confidential that you don't want on there, like it's training, right?
Hmm.
Don't put that there. I think it's common sense, but a lot of people don't understand the piece of like what you put on there. It's feeding their model. I
Yeah.
think the next piece is to prompt responsibly and to make sure you understand your question, understand the answer that you need. And
Mm.
I think most importantly is to be able to explain, right, and apply it in real life, whatever it spits out. Gen AI has like a way of like stroking your ego. Like you'll put something in there and they'll be like, excellent question, just
Yeah, that's a
like
great
That's what I
it's
perspective.
a
love
great
about it. That's what I
perspective.
love about
I
it.
have never, and you're like, oh, thank you. And it's like it like primes you, and then you just take whatever they write, and you're like, wait a minute, this makes zero sense.
Yeah, it's actually
Because when you're in a boardroom, guys, or when you're in like these important meetings, like I was just in Philly at a Jazz Pharma when the head of the marketing oncology is asking me a question, I don't have time to go to ChatGPT and look up the answer. Like,
yeah.
I have to understand the context. I have to understand how to properly respond. So, do not use ChatGPT to replace your brain, even though it's very easy to do. It
So easy.
will harm your professional life in the long run.
Yeah, I think it's favorite. Just to add on my 2 cents, but for whatever it's worth, 2 cents. Um, at least when you're writing something and it gives a very strong, like recent reports have indicated, read that report. Go and click on that citation and see it. Because a lot of times, about a year ago when I was writing another paper, uh, it gave me a citation. I was like, I'm not familiar with this particular author. And I clicked on it and it went to like I was writing research on regulatory intelligence, and the paper was about like mice-induced comas on like heparin and cocaine. And I was like, that's nowhere near my research area. And it was such a surprising shock of like mice. And I was like, I do nothing with rodents. Uh, it'll lie to you. And to this day, it's still I haven't tried using ChatGPT in writing recently, but I worry that a lot of students will just take it for granted. It sounds right. The most recent report indicated a 12% increase of regulatory intelligence experts or whatever it said back then, and you'll just take it and run with it. So at least for me, I typically tell students, if you cite something, you better check it, and if it's wrong, I'll just give you a 0 for the entire paper. So then now it gives the opposite effect where everyone doesn't use ChatGPT.
No
It's
one
like
uses it.
I think people still need to use it, but you have to be careful in terms of the information that it's giving to you to double check and actually understand what's going on.
Yeah. Or you could get a boss like me when they'll come and ask me a question and then live, I'm, well, what do you think we should do? And then
Yeah,
you're sitting there like, wait, what do I do? It's like,
yeah,
no,
I don't know.
what's your recommendation?
Yeah,
So when you have those bosses who are asking you questions, like you have to be able to think on your feet. And I think it's a muscle, like strategic thought is a muscle, and
really
it's
is.
weakened by consistent reliance on AI.
And you have to train that muscle. It's not something that just comes naturally. You have to evaluate information, what's available, the scope of the information, and see is it actually applicable to the question at hand. So,
Yep.
yeah. So in terms of, because I also want to make sure that there's about 30 minutes for 30 minutes for the audience to ask Q&As. So I have about on my time here about 20-ish, 15-ish more minutes to ask these questions. So just curious in terms of your thoughts. Are you excited for the future of AI, both in terms of a positive and negative aspect? I'd like to see both areas in terms of you're excited for this area, but then I'm also worried about this particular area for the introduction of artificial intelligence, whether that's for business or personal perspective. I leave it open to both of you to explain your thoughts and opinions on it.
Yeah, I think I'm excited for it in a business perspective, and I think what companies could be able to kind of do when there is that much more data, that much more available information you'd be able to go have. I
Mhm.
think specifically with all of us kind of being in the biopharma and biotech race, I think hopefully that'll be able to lead to some great breakthroughs that people who are just looking from paper to paper might not be able to kind of have the exact same results. That you can actually start digesting a lot more information a lot quicker, and with all of us knowing, as long as you kind of do your due diligence, and maybe as these models keep on getting smarter and faster and more thoughtful, I think hopefully that will be able to kind of allow more information to it. I think in terms of what fearful, I agree. I think students and learning from it, I think that could be a really big crutch when
Yeah,
it's so easy to be able to kind of go copy and paste. I think there's a lot of I'm also still excited to be able to say that, say and use ChatGPT and other agents as a thought partner.
Mm.
We'll talk this thing out with me. This is what I'm
Have a
thinking, presenting
conversation
over
with
to the
it and
client. Yeah, and
mm.
just coming off as using it as practice. Soraya?
Your
Yeah,
thoughts, Sarah?
I think I'm definitely excited on the business side. I'm in marketing, but even in regards to like R&D and identifying like more leads for targeted therapies, right?
Hmm.
Um, anything that we can do to help create more therapies. We work across several clients. One of my clients, they create these ultra targeted therapies for these ultra rare diseases.
Mm.
And it's just so beautiful to know that a company is willing to invest in something. Have you got, wait, do you remember, maybe Justin, you remember Demasi? Did you read Demasi and
Oh, that was one of Casper's case studies or
one
something.
of the case studies that
Or
about
for the
like
$1 billion that it
the,
requires
Oh
to.
yeah.
yeah, the $1 million degree.
We've all read Demasi. Yeah, yeah,
Demasi. So it's like how they're like justifying the prices.
yeah.
I just
Mhm.
think it's like very beautiful that people are like companies are investing in these therapies super targeted to help maybe 10 people, 100 people. I
Mm.
think in regards to like how we can decrease those costs so that they're more willing to do that, I think that's a beautiful thing. At my company, I think what we're doing in regards to marketing, it's very revolutionary. I spoke about digital. I didn't even touch like what we're doing for like the field reps and for MSLs who like go in person to talk to the doctors. We use AI there as well. I think the fear comes from like one immorality. The world that we live in. I have a 6-year-old daughter going
Mhm.
on 16, and just thinking about what the world is going to be like in 10 years, 20 years for her. But also the piece of like a lack of connection. I think there's value in going to pull knowledge and wisdom from other people, from your peers,
Mm.
instead of going to the computer. I
Mm.
think like Jason, I know nothing about FDA regulatory law, but it's like I could go to you, and Justin, I could go to you about patient journeys. Like I can go to people who I know are skilled, and
Mm.
that builds that human connection, builds that network. And I
Mm.
just don't want that to be eroded if people are consistently turning to Gen AI to
Mm.
answer their questions. I think a lot is there's a lot of value in like the back and forth and the conversation you would have when going to someone about what they're specialized in. So I would say those are
Very
my
fair.
points.
No, that's good. I think just to put in my 2 cents, I think it's also same thing everyone has said here in terms of the double checking and seeing the applicability and really strengthening that muscle of understanding why this information is important. But what I'm fearful is ChatGPT can't read everything. Conversations that I have with other people, like one-on-one, I mean, this one, because you can record and hear and translate to information, you could, but when I'm having a dinner conversation, that's not likely to be recorded.
I don't know.
ChatGPT won't.
Ask Saraiyah. I'm sure she says that is. But
You
yeah,
may
sorry,
think
continue.
so.
Oh no, that's not great.
You don't know.
But there's different situations where I go into an office where we're required to put in our phones and laptops, like our personal devices, in an RFID boxes, and then we can have an actual conversation one-on-one with people
Mm.
for more sensitive information. That one is not as recorded or transcribed, etc. So it's really human to human intelligence that we get from. That information is not really available with the generative AI and other artificial intelligence model. So then there could be a strong case where society as a whole degresses, retracts in regards to the use, over reliance and use of artificial intelligence, actually using human intelligence rather than artificial intelligence to evaluate, analyze, and to share information. That type of information is hard to get and it's very expensive to curate. So it's really only going to be with those companies or those institutions that have the capital and the resources to ascertain these particular intelligence nodes. So that's just my thoughts and opinions on this, but
Yeah,
sometimes
no,
I'm watching too much Black Mirror, so.
yeah, I'm curious because I agree, I think for the most part, but I also think sometimes it could be able to benefit some of those person to person kind of conversations. And now you have a lot more information to kind of be able to go over to be able to talk about. And instead of pulling from just two sources that you like physically read, maybe
Mhm.
there's 10, 20 sources that kind of like you had ChatGPT kind of be able to help you and present it at both sides. And
Mhm.
now you can be able to have a little more confidence when going into kind of some of those discussions. Will that
Mm.
be every single case? Probably not. But I agree, probably the latter that you were kind of like at least talking about would probably be more likely.
Fair. Any thoughts in regards to when not to use AI?
Any major life decisions?
That's when I rely most on it.
Yeah, I want to know. I'm more of the person, I want every little information that's out there type of thing. So give it to me and let me read it, and then I'll have my own personal analysis paralysis moment for major life decisions. No, that's good. Yeah.
I think for me, it's probably the school and learning. Unless you start prompting to be able to say, okay, I'm going to send you questions and don't tell me the answer, but walk me through it and figure this thing out. That's probably possible.
Yeah. So actually, I've been using AI. So in regards to that, I've been using AI where it's like, don't give me spoilers, but it's because I'm watching something and I'm like, I don't remember exactly when I watched it. So I asked it, don't give me spoilers, but ask me questions one by one to determine, am I on season 3 or season 5? And then it will tell me like, oh, do you know who this Holly is? And I'm like, I don't know who Holly is. "Oh, okay, you're not season 5, then you're in season 3." So it kind of tells me like, start watching this episode starting season 3, episode 2. That's where you are, Jason. I'm like, oh, thank God. That has been helpful. But in reality of productivity in life, it's not really necessary. I could just rewatch it from season 1 to season 3. But I think that's a good way in terms of like, don't spoil this, don't tell me all the information, but feed me the correct information of when I need it, because I still want to have, I don't want the whole synopsis of what's happening in this TV series that I'm watching. So yeah, that's what I've been using. And it's been pretty good in regards to spoon
TV
feeding
show.
me questions of making sure I don't get spoilers. So
This is probably my new favorite pastime is hearing all the ways that people use.
mhm.
I would have never thought to use
Yeah.
that.
Don't spoil it. Just tell me, like, tell me, am I episode 3 or 4? Because otherwise, if
Give
you
me the
don't tell it
hint.
to don't spoil it, it will just give you everything. Season 1, Jason died. Season 2, Justin died. Season 3. No, I don't want to know who's dying in this Game of Thrones episode type of thing. I want to know like, where am I and how do I watch it type of thing.
I
So
love
that's my favorite use case. Um, but very quickly, because I also want to share this. I've been playing this computer game recently, and there's some farming that's required to do. So like you need 3 breads and 2 peanut butters type of thing, whatever. I'm making up things now. And then I read it and I'm like, no, I actually need a jelly. I needed 3 jellies and 2 peanut butters, and it's lying to me. So even on computer games, it is lying to me from computer games all the way over to regulations, and I am unhappy with people lying to me,
If
whether
that's your
artificial or
biggest
not.
qualm with AI, I think that's okay.
Yeah. For now, we'll see. We'll see.
Now think about doctored images, doctored videos, all that that could really start getting crazy, but
Yes. Then it gets.
Your jelly farm will be okay.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. I want to, Dan, I think you're helping me administrate this particular session. Are there any questions or comments from everyone in regards to the audience members here? So
Hey,
if you have any
Jason,
questions.
yeah, this is Dan. I just pushed a note out to the group, so I told them they could either raise their hand or they can post as well in the chat. We'll get those out to you, and then I'll kick things off then with a very
Sure.
practical question. If I was a student in my last year, how would I gauge the company culture? Because I would think I would want to come in and show that I have these AI skills and knowledge, understanding of the scope, the pros and cons, the dangers, and all of that. But I also could see at different organizations, it could be a little, you could feel a little on edge, or it could be dangerous, right? To have too strong of an AI to be a cheerleader, if you were, if that
Hmm.
wasn't the organization itself. So, how would you advise a student who's going to be graduating soon to sort of walk that line?
And in your situation, are you a student who's trying to get into an AI company, or are you like researching a company and interviewing for them?
Interviewing, and maybe it's a biotech company, you're not sure how they're adopting it at what
Mhm.
level. But I would think new grads, it would seem that they have a strength, right, in coming out, and that some of them are going to be more attuned and sharper on these questions perhaps than somebody in the field a long time.
I think always having like I mean, in the Q&A always at the end, I think that's a great question. How is you and your team kind of applying AI? What do you kind of see as the future? How would that kind of affect specifically within this role? But I always think the best part of the interview that I think KGI students probably do the best is always the why this company. And I
Hmm.
think it's because of just all the information that we're kind of given in the past 2 years, but then at the same time is just the ability to be able to do your due diligence and to be able to kind of go the extra step when it comes down to why Amgen, why Edwards, really understanding and packaging all that information that you're finding on the web, finding from AI, but making it still conversational, making it still applied over in the best way. You could be able to just start listing off, oh, you just had Q2 earnings report that said this and that, and I want to be involved in it. Or you start finding ways to be able to sprinkle that into an answer that's more authentic and more personable.
Yeah, I definitely will second that on the just doing your initial research. Like if you go and ask ChatGPT about my company, what comes up will be like bits and pieces. I think the best way is actually just click on the website, go read the blog posts, like go read the articles, go check the LinkedIn. It's light stalking, but it like that's how you get your information. And I think the other piece that is it's so crazy how this is like, people don't even consider this anymore. Reach out to people who work at the company.
Mm.
Message them on LinkedIn, say, hey, I'm interested in working a position here. Would you have 10, 15 minutes to connect with me this week so we can, discuss? I maybe have a couple of questions. I want to learn a bit more about the company, about the culture. That is like the best way, in my opinion, to learn about the culture is to speak to the employees who actually work there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's fair. I think also from myself as well is asking particular questions in terms of what does work-life balance look like, or what's your day-to-day interactions with the team. If they're overly corporate in their answers or overly taking long pauses on how to explain a particular thing, those are big red flags in my opinion in regards to a company that I want to work for, versus if they're much more open and authentic of the particular language and tone that they're using, and that they're mixing in both the positive and the negatives. That to me is a much more green flag of company culture. Uh, there are I the reason why I'm thinking more in depth is because I'm doing research on quality culture and company culture. But in general, there are particular indicators of this particular matrix on a scale like 1 to 5 that you can poignantly, I can never pronounce it, but I spell it all the time. Tactfully ask. I'm a writer, not a speaker. Tactfully ask in regards to company culture, and it gives a good indication of whether it's a green flag, a yellow flag, or a red flag.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's a great question. Any other questions from the audience members?
I see some people who graduated my year, so one of them's going to step up.
You
Or
should
you can
call
just
them out.
call them out.
Call them out.
Hi,
They're like,
Jocelyn.
Hello.
perfect.
Great to hear from you.
Thank you. I just have one question about what do you think about companies that don't want to implement AI? For example, I work for a pharmaceutical company, and as a part of the master data management team, we create product formulas and recipes, and the company doesn't allow us to use AI tools. So, in order to protect the confidential data and drug formulas. So, what's your opinion about companies choosing not to implement AI in order to protect sensitive data?
I feel like Jason has with the regulatory side.
All right, I'll speak my 2 cents. There are definitely ways to protect a garden wall of information. So you can create a particular environment for saying, for client A, we use this particular AI model in this software because it's a walled garden of the information that's proprietary for that client, versus client B and client C and client D type of thing. So I think that if a company or management is hesitant to use artificial intelligence, they may either be because they're uncertain of the technology and how to actually utilize it, or they don't have enough funding to actually ask these vendors to come in to implement these into their existing systems today. I think it's this wave of this tool of artificial intelligence is going to be similar with back in the 1990s of the internet, and even before that, like calculators. Back in the day, I'm thinking Newton. I don't know when calculators were invented actually, but when they didn't have calculators, pen and paper. Well, yeah, they have paper, pen and paper on ink, and they're creating Pythagorean theorems and whatnot. But then all of a sudden, when a calculator comes in, I'm sure there's some people who are hesitant to use and rely on calculators. Versus now, today, we all use it in our phone, in our pockets through our phones and iPhones and Androids, whatever we're using. if you are still a company, I'd be very curious to find a company that does not use a computer today. To me, that is where AI is going to overtake the world, where there is going to be a time and place in the future where every company is going to be using AI. And it's no longer a matter of are you using AI or not, or how far behind are you? That's really going to be the question. So I'd be curious to see how long those companies can survive without AI. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I mean, because there's probably so much, I mean, with all of us being in the biopharma space, there's so much confidentiality, so many secrets. And if I'm Pfizer and I have an employee who's talking about an upcoming drug launch, now that's in the ether. That's for Sariah to be able to go share and share that with everyone.
Mhm.
But like that starts becoming, and I know you have ChatGPT where you can be able to start getting enterprise accounts and certain things. Um, but it's still one of those things that it's tough to be able to kind of go put a lot of the information in. Maybe over time it'll be better, but if anything, I think there's going to be even more information that starts getting accrued that you could be able to start having just more of that over in the ether that you don't know how it's going to be affected. So that's why, I mean, you still see companies that partner over with AI companies or use them, license their service, acquire companies. I think that's an area where some of those companies will be able to survive and thrive.
Fair. Soraya, do you have thoughts?
Yeah, I would say I want to double down actually on the investment piece because I think that's very critical. So all of my team, like they know very well, like we never put anything in regards to like MPI level data or like any information into ChatGPT, like at all.
Mhm.
But what our product team has begun to do is kind of establish Gen AI on our proprietary platform. So it's like we're rolling out a 2.0 version, but it's
Mhm.
been a huge lift. They've been working on it for months and months. They're going to roll it out in Q1 next year. So it's like, unless I think companies are willing to invest in essentially privacy,
Mhm.
that they're going to kind of fall behind this curve until Gen AI does get to that point where you are confident that what your prompts are is 100% confidential.
Protected. Yeah. Mhm. All right. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. Hans, did you have a question? I see your microphone is
Yeah, I guess question or comment. I was unable to figure out how to raise my hand. I'm a Luddite, I guess. Um, so I'm a lawyer at a biotech company. I'm the only attorney in my company. So
Oh,
much of my AI interaction is be fast beating heart as I realize what people have been doing and how I'm gonna box it in and
I'm there with you.
reorient things. I
Oh,
saw a picture somebody posted on LinkedIn last week. I have it saved in my phone. It says, a computer can never be held accountable. Therefore, a computer must never make a management decision. And I think that's going to have to be something similar that folks wrangle with AI and apply it because already you've seen, I guess OpenAI came out with guidance to itself to say we can't give legal advice, we can't give whatever medical advice or something.
mhm,
And we have, a lot of AI policy templates I see floating around. It's like, all right, you got to box out stuff like legal decisions or legal analysis or legal guidance, just because of the downstream consequences of, if you get legal advice from your attorney and you keep it to yourself, you have a lot of protections through the court system and downstream consequences. But if
mhm,
you're trying to get legal advice from your AI agent, even if it's a, gardened in system in your company, it's still going to be something the other person in a lawsuit can see and then
mhm,
ask you, like, well, you'd made this decision based on what AI told you. And then I don't even know what the liability and the consequences that could be, but I could see it could turn out very poorly for a
mm,
company if someone's terminated and then it finds out the person in the management role was using AI to sort through their employees and figure out who they could terminate to save this much money in their budget or whatever. So
Wow.
making any AI based employment decisions is already something that is totally banned in most companies.
mm,
And then what Soraya said about the privacy aspects, the data privacy aspects, just like I'm a certified data privacy professional for the US. but even I don't know all the laws in all the states. And then when you start touching on Europe, it's like incredibly surprising how much privacy and data protection
So
there
much more.
is around any European resident or European citizen.
Mm.
Um, so it wouldn't surprise me if even you had a fully enclosed enterprise AI system, someone could end up accidentally putting in something related to an EU citizen that gets to a US server, and you weren't supposed to do that. And sort of like anything related to an EU person, by default, you have to keep their data in the EU. So we have, separate Amazon web server instances for our EU stuff versus our US stuff, and it gets
Mhm.
incredibly complicated. So imagine people are making mistakes all the time right now with just not knowing all these laws, and unless you're looping in your lawyers and data privacy experts all the time for everything you're setting up, it's things are bound to get messed up.
Yeah. 'Cause
Um,
to speak more about that, Hans, actually, so there's still some people in people who I work with who it's like, what is GDPR? I have no idea. It's like the European privacy laws, and I'm like, well, if you don't know that, then do you even know that the EU has already enacted an AI law
yeah,
in regards to not only just the biotech industry, but just overall type of thing. Um, it worries me that people don't know what the laws are and they're just actively breaking them without not intentionally and maliciously breaking them, but just, unintentionally naively going through the general thoughts of trying to answer questions and answer it correctly and whatnot, and they're breaking potential laws type of thing. And
yeah,
it's not an easy job, Hans.
as a fully remote person, also I was having mild fantasies when you started talking about having meetings in a skiff with everyone's phones and a RFID box. I was like, oh, that'd be so glorious, wouldn't it? To just have face-to-face meetings with no chance of
With
anything recorded or
yeah.
transcribed or put somewhere without me knowing it.
It,
Yeah.
it is a lot better. But I've also seen someone attempting to put in, I forgot what it's called, but it's a particular device where you just clip it onto like your lapel or something or your collar, and it actively records everything that you're having. And I'm like, what is that? And it's like, you can't be in this room with that.
Yeah,
Leave,
exactly.
leave immediately type of thing.
Uh,
It's very interesting what people think they can and can't get away with. And
well, that's what Apple's pushing out to everybody now, right? It's
yeah,
like you'll have a personal assistant that's just 24/7 on you, listening to everything.
yeah.
Uh, yeah, it's for your personal life, not your professional life.
Still,
Uh,
I don't want my personal life everywhere on the internet. So
yeah, I would just caution everybody. I'm sure your companies want you experimenting and trying to create things and implement things, but I would say make sure you're in the loop with your legal and IT security and whatever data privacy teams at your companies as you're trying to brainstorm and try things out. Because you may build an amazing tool, and then once you start showing it to people, they figure out you can't actually do what you just spent a bunch of time building. So let's say get
no,
people involved in the loop as soon as you can in terms of a legal, just kind of gut check in with your legal department.
very fair. Thanks for your comments and suggestions, Hans. Any other thoughts or questions? Anyone else from the group here?
Or any personal stories on how you use AI?
Or how much you've hated it in hallucinations, like I've been sharing. If not, I do have other questions, but it's going back more in terms of business intelligence, competitive intelligence. So I think I want to say it's Saraiyah that you mentioned this, where you ask ChatGPT for competitive intelligence or what your competitors are doing. Do you have any thoughts in terms of uh, how do you utilize to get more information from your competitors?
Oh, it's very much at a high level. Like if we're doing that, it's just summary. We have these other platforms that we can use. I don't know if you guys have heard of, I think at KGI we use like the Wayback Machine to
Oh yeah, the way
like
back.
go back. Yeah, we don't, that's not what we use now. We use these other platforms, Media Radar, Pathfatics, and basically it gives us that asset level information, spend information to let us know like where competitors are placing ads, how much they're spending.
Hmm.
And then other things that we do sometimes is just like at a high level, like understanding the current clinical trials that are available. Because something we can do is something called digital tracking, where when a person also another creepy thing. But when you search a certain clinical trial or you search a certain keyword, if you're an NPI, like if you're a physician or a healthcare provider, it can identify you and pull you in and begin targeting you based on your search history or based on you spending significant time on a page that has, you know, X% of keywords that match our keyword list. So it's really cool in kind of that regard. We rolled something out recently, a competitive intelligence campaign with digital tracking and pulling in like, hey, these doctors searching for anything regarding these clinical trials. We pulled 3 clinical trials, created like 60 keywords per clinical trial. And if anyone searches them, we're retargeting them and then they're engaging. So I think competitive intelligence on Gen AI, it's like a high level, but a lot more strategic thought has to go into it for it to be impactful.
That's fair.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me too, being over in the business development space and looking to be able to find and identify people and talk to people over at Amgen and Pfizer and all these kind of like large companies, there is a lot of information that's out there, from 10Ks over to pipeline reviews and analyses to clinicaltrials.gov. You could start putting together a little bit of a story about like, okay, they're coming up on a phase 2 trial readout next year, and this is over in CLL, so it's over in blood cancer. They're probably experiencing these problems. B1 just developed this specific drug that's also in the same indication. Looks like their specific drug might actually be a little bit more effective. Here's ways that I think we can kind of be able to go over and apply a real data set into that specific area. You can start telling that story, I think, through having all the information, and I think AI helps consolidate a lot of that.
Thank you. Interesting perspective. So I'm curious in regards to within your company and your utilization of artificial intelligence, were there any like considering back in 2023 into today, 2022 until today, has there been resistance or obstacles in regards to adoption of artificial intelligence? Or has everyone just been like, I know exactly what artificial intelligence is and I'm going to use it every day now?
I think there's going to be a curve. Like there's always a curve. I think so. I think one of the major pushbacks are maybe like MSLs or sales reps, right? Because now they're using platforms like Viva or Salesforce and they're getting like these AI created suggestions. So it's like, okay, Dr. Jason just diagnosed this patient, go call on him. And then they go call him and he's like, I didn't just diagnose a patient. And then you're like, stupid AI, like that was wrong. So I think, and then like they feel like they wasted time, and for a sales rep, time is money. So if they're spending half a day going to call on this doctor based on an AI suggestion that was incorrect, like yeah, it's gonna be pushback. So I think in regards to like the different verticals, I think marketing teams have very much adopted it, at least, I mean, widespread, either my clients or they're working on building it in-house. But I think the major pushback is like for the actual people who, wherein AI is telling them what to do, it's they want to have that, you know, that control. I'm saying like, and pushing back, or influencing AI. Like, no, I know this about Dr. Jason, or I know he's at a hospital that has a policy that I can't even go meet with him. So why are you telling me to go meet with him? They want to be able to influence those suggestions. And I think that is a major like hill and that people are still trying to get over.
Very fair. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would probably agree. I guess from 2022 until like today, I think just with more information, it's been something to be able to start applying that in certain ways and using that information accordingly to be able to not come off as creepy, not to be able to kind of come off as, oh, I just saw you just do this and let's go have a chat about this. It's more about still coming off and identifying that as a human too.
It's like I noticed you had a cappuccino latte and
Yeah, exactly.
4th and 20th Street on Main Street at 2:04 p.m. today, Justin. And you know,
I fall for those Instagram ads all the time. You should be able to ask my fiance every single place. Easy.
They get you.
Yeah, exactly.
Very cool, very cool. But since I know we have some students here as well, there are a lot of these popular like I forgot what they're called, but online courses for artificial intelligence that are available. Is that something that you would recommend, and whether you have an opinion on that as well. I'm also curious, has your company particularly provided training on how to use artificial? Let's do that one first. Has your company invested in terms of training or hiring an AI person or particular module to learn about artificial intelligence and how to use it? And then do you think it was particularly effective?
Yeah, so at least my company is similar to Soraya. Like we have our own informed kind of chat GBT function that you're kind of supposed to be able to kind of use and ask questions that way. But we've also done that to be able to kind of create foundational models so that you could be able to start asking a lot of those questions based on you put in company presentations, you put in slide decks, you put in all the information that's kind of going on,
Mhm.
and you're able to kind of ask questions based on that. Our company's really started picking up a lot of that, and it helps. You'll kind of be able to go put in a slide presentation. I have this client meeting coming up. This is what I think the meeting is actually going to be useful. What are some gaps over within my slide presentation, and what are some things I should be kind of focusing on? So those are some of the areas that we kind of use AI agents for.
Hmm.
Soraya?
Soraya?
On my end, at least on for my team, I work with like the client facing, the client engagement team, where we're doing everything from like campaign design to like contracting, orchestration, reporting. I'm not teaching them how to use AI. I'm teaching them how do you think.
Mm.
Like,
Much
do you
harder.
know the right? It's a lot. Do you know the right questions to ask? If a client came to one of my managers today and said, I want this like ridiculous data point, and I'm like, I called her, I'm like, why do you want this? And she's like, well, I'm trying to understand this and this. I'm like, well, you don't need that data point. What you need
Yeah.
is this and this. And she's like, oh, okay, well, can you get me that? So it's like,
They're
no,
asking the
I
wrong
don't want you
questions.
to,
Yeah.
I don't want you to use AI. Like, I want you to think. I want
Mm.
you to strategize. Like, I pride myself and my team and the company on just providing this like white glove strategic like service. Like
Mhm.
business strategy is, it goes so far. Like everyone loves AI, but again, it's artificial. Like they want to know, like, okay, how do I actually apply it? What do I actually do? And
Mm.
I think like, yeah, there's a platform we could use to help us like create PowerPoints, but I come from consulting. I have OCD when it comes to PowerPoint. So like you're gonna have to redo everything anyway. Like you
Yeah.
can use it to create it, but when you pass it to my desk, I'm gonna tell
Mm.
you to move all your icons and align everything. Like you're gonna have to do it all over anyways.
Mm.
Um, but I care most about the content and the strategy and the thought,
Mm.
and less of like, I don't know, the AI used to do that.
Mm. Actually, because you mentioned about PowerPoints, I've actually tried. Here's a great answer for now that I think of it. A great answer on when to not use AI. I've tried using those AI platforms that says like we can make your presentation for you, and I wanted to move like just move this more spacing, add these particular keywords and categorizations up on top here. Not only does it do it incorrectly, but it also spells typical like real words incorrectly, and I'm just like, oh, I'm just gonna make it from scratch myself, and maybe I wonder is my caliber of requirements of quality too high, or is the output of this generative AI is still too low for me to really utilize it to what I need it to be? I don't know.
You probably just need to be able to do the paid version or something.
I am doing the paid version.
Did you get the premium package?
There's gonna be a paywall when it comes
Oh, I'm
down to
sure
that.
there's gonna be a more like the premium, the high, the diamond, and then like the extra ultra premium version, and I don't know. I'm just constantly angry.
I'm telling you that
Jason, there was a question in the chat we got here from Jared, our
Hmm.
alumni chair. He's got his cameras off, but he said he wanted to ask, how do you think the FDA will alter its regulations around AI? And then mentions clinical trial discovery, drug discovery, etc.
Ooh, that's a great
I love
question.
that one.
Do you guys want to say anything?
I want to hear from you at least on.
You're the expert.
Okay. So this is a great question. I've actually asked this question, was it last week or 2 weeks ago? I think about 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago when I was talking to some of my friends at the agency. My particular friend mentioned this particular phrase, and she said, "We do not regulate how you make your submission filings." And that is all I needed to know to hear what the direction of the agency is going with this. So at least from the agents, at least my interpretation of the agency's comments in regards to that, and it was really in regards to regulatory affairs and submission filings, they don't mind how you use AI to curate and collect information, but you better be sure that it's correct. At least in the context of how I was asking over dinner with her, she mentioned that it is very difficult currently today with the agency and what they're dealing with to issue new guidances and new information. So a lot of times due to the internal disputes that are going on, most of the agencies are still reading from their colleagues across the pond to see what their interpretations from the EU and their guidances and their directives and their annexes that are going through, and take that to heart and trying to interweave it in regards to their current law, the United States current laws and requirements and regulations. So they're taking a much more external approach, more so because of the current instability, I think that's a better word, instability of the current landscape today in the United States. So I can't imagine that there's going to be too much regulations or too much changes in how AI is being used in clinical trials, drug discovery, submission filings, etc. But I can imagine that they're going to use a lot of the Europeans' laws and requirements and interweave it in regards to the United States laws, because it can be a much higher level of interpretation rather than being more detailed and descriptive as the Europeans' laws are. So that is my interpretation of a discussion that I had with the agency. And I think it holds a lot of weight and water because, at least for those that work in CGMP manufacturing, the US regulations hasn't changed their annex, I don't know how to say it, aseptic manufacturing requirements and sterile manufacturing. There's been no changes in regards to the CFR laws in regards to this, but the Europeans have drastically changed their equivalent. It's called Annex 1. And basically, you can see the language now with United States investigators. They're writing in this same wording that you would find in Annex 1, but they're still referencing the 21 CFR that exists today because the language of that particular administrative law is written in a high level that it still allows them to put in specific requirements from other agencies because the content and the topic area is still relevant and say it's still applicable within the United States. So I don't see it having actual specific changes in terms of CFRs or legislations or new acts coming through, but I can for sure see that it is being reflective of what the Europeans are writing, that is being quoted in the United States reports and investigations. That's my opinion.
Is Jason, thank you for the answer. I
Sure.
wanted to follow up on that because this is something that I've been looking to in as well. In terms of you stating AI, does that take into consideration LLMs as well?
Yes.
Because I know, like the academic grants, SBIRs have prohibited grants that have been documented with LLMs. I think the reason for that is because, like what we were saying earlier in the panel, there's lots of information that gets fabricated. You know, the models tend to hallucinate, over time, especially with larger sets of data and larger documents.
Yeah. And that's why my friend was mentioning that like we don't regulate the particular usage of how you submit and grab information, but then you have to be sure the information is accurate. And that's still it's whether a company or their representatives are and employees and staff workers are confident in how that LLM or whatever AI, machine learning, etc., that is utilizing and condensing the information is accurate or not. If they are trusting it or untrusting it, or if they have particular experts on the panel to review what the AI has spit out, the output of the information is, it's really going to be a tough battle, not only with the agency, but also with the staff that works in the company.
Got it.
Yeah.
So, because I think lots of the approach that, say, drug discovery companies are taking is they have to hard code in equations into their tool because LLMs, you can't trace back on how, say, data was analyzed or math was performed. So the hard code of an equation still has to be done within the tool that you're using.
Yes, and that I've had conversation with other experts as well, where what happens if it's a black box? Basically, you feed in information, it goes into the software program, and it is a black box because each time it can give a slightly different type of information. Even though the information we initially put in this black box is the same consistently, the information output is slightly different. It's like purple versus violet versus indigo. Oh my God, I almost forgot all the colors in the world. Violet versus indigo. It's still purple, but it's different interpretations of it. How do you know if it's going to stay in that purple spectrum, or will it go over to red, maroon, ruby, red? I don't know any other color. I'm a typical guy. So how will you ensure that it doesn't go from purple to the more red-ish areas? That is a tough conversation. So a lot of people have been hesitant to discuss about it because we don't know. Not only for internal within companies, but also external within the agencies. We're all trying to see, is there someone who is brave enough to actually do it? And are they successful enough to do it? I have not seen that yet in full effect and force, but I'd be curious in the next, if I had to read my tea leaves and crystal ball, I want to say the next 5 to 7 years to see when it actually comes into fruition in at least in our industry. But typically what I see is other industries will attempt it first, and then based off of that, and we build more confidence in other industries, will the biotech industry and pharma industry will then begin to adopt it. So hence the 5-10 years type of timeline. Of course, crystal
Thank you.
ball, tea leaves reading. Welcome to
Thank you,
my
thank you.
astrology,
Jason, I can't believe you forgot mauve. Like you just went through the purples, you just didn't mauve, blue, violet. Like you're missing out.
All the colors of the world. Yeah, I'm not good
I
color
don't,
coordination.
I
Purple.
don't want to be the grandma on this, right? But I just find it so hard to see that day come when a pharma company is saying, I want AI to write my BLA and submit it to the FDA. Like, I just don't like the investment, the time. Like, there's so much that go like this is like I said, we're very strict, regulated, and it's not like any other industry. So if it does happen, it's years and years down the line. But I just don't see them all the millions and hundreds of millions of dollars that they use to invest, identify leads, get through preclinical, get through clinical trials, the people, and then just leave it in the hands of AI to write their BLA or NDA. It just, I don't want to say it'll never happen, but it would be very hard for me to
Imagine that world.
imagine that.
Yeah. Very fair. Any last thoughts from Justin and Saraiyah that you would like to share with our audience members here today?
No, I mean, just don't be a stranger. Happy to be able to help out any KGI's alums out there. And really happy that we were able to discuss this. Thank you.
No, thank you. Saraiyah?
Yeah, I just want to say thanks for inviting me. I always love to come back and attend KGI alumni events. Great conversation. Thanks for putting together those great questions. And yeah, also I am available on LinkedIn. Find me. My schedule is crazy. Like I have 16 meetings tomorrow, but when I get there, I do have time to always have a quick chat and provide some advice or guidance. So feel free to contact me.
Sounds good. Thank you both for joining me on this particular Beaker Speakers series, Alumni in Business, AI Business. Thank you for your time and comments and thoughts and opinions and whatnot. Thank you, Dan, for hosting all of this. If there's any questions for anyone, please feel free to reach out to any of us, and I'd be happy to connect you to whoever would be best to answer your question. Thank you all for joining us tonight at the Beaker Speakers series.